Hi guys, so today we're going to be talking about the different sampling techniques that sociologists might use in their work. Obviously, once you've decided what topic you are going to study and what method you are going to use, you need to decide who you are going to be your respondents, and that's where sampling techniques come in. So we have a few key terms here to look at as well. The first key term is population. The population is the whole group that you are interested in. So if you are studying, for example, doctors, then all of the doctors are your population. But you obviously can't conduct your research on every single one of them, so you need to select a representative sample from that to take part in your study. In order to do that, you need a sampling frame. The sampling frame, very simply, is a list of all of the members of your population. So if you are studying doctors, as we mentioned, then registered doctors. So you could go to the British Medical Association, get a list of the registered doctors and take your sample from that list. The sample then is this group that you select from that sampling frame to actually take part in your study. Now, probably the easiest form of sampling is the simple random sampling method. So all of the names go into a hat or go into a computer program, and you randomly select the ones that you want to take part in your study. Nice easy way, this is what's called a probability sample, because everybody on your sampling frame has an equal probability of being chosen. Very little chance of bias creeping in here because you are literally randomly selecting the names. A similar probability sample is the systematic sampling procedure. So this involves selecting every Xth name off a list. So in this example, you can see every fifth name is taken. If you wanted a larger sample, you could take every third name. If you wanted a smaller sample, you could take every 100th name. Regardless, you use the order of the names to randomize your sample. And again, everybody has an equal chance of being picked. The problem then with both simple random sampling and systematic sampling is that you can potentially end up with quite biased groups. There was a study done in Birmingham a few years ago where they decided to take the first 3 students on every register. Now obviously Birmingham having quite a large Asian population and lots of Asian surnames beginning with A, they ended up with a sample that was not representative of the population as a whole. So you may well choose to use a stratified random sampling technique. In this method, you split your sample into relevant groups. So if you're interested in the difference between males and females, for example, you can divide it into male and female groups. You can then look at ethnic minorities versus the ethnic majority. You could split it according to a whole range of different factors so that you end up with a representative sample, a sample that is representative of the whole population. Now, obviously, those probability samples are great when you have a sampling frame, but you don't always have a sampling frame. And so an alternative to probability sampling is this non-probability sample, the snowball sample. So in this case, you find one person that belongs to the group that you are interested in. So for example, Laurie Taylor used this method investigating the lifestyle of criminals. You could use it, for example, for homeless people. There is no register of homeless people, so you would need to find one homeless person who was willing to engage with you and take part in your study, and then ask them to introduce you to other people who are members of that group, other people who can help you with your survey. So the snowball sampling technique builds up like a snowball. The one person that you start talking to introduces you to others, and eventually you gather enough people to make a sample that you can use for your research. The next one then, quota or purposive sampling. these are quite similar. So quota sampling is based on sort of characteristics about yourself. So your age, your gender, quite often used in market research. And you will see people, for example, standing in St. Peter's Street in town with clipboards. If they don't stop you to ask you their questions, it's probably because you don't fit their quota. They're looking for a particular type of person to interview, and you are not it. Purposive sampling is similar then to quota sampling, but here it's more the person's role rather than their characteristics. So doctors, teachers, people who have a particular role within society. Now, many of these samples can also be done as a form of cluster sampling. Cluster sampling then is where you take all of the sample from one small area. Again, I've mentioned this is often used for market research, not so needed these days. Obviously, we have the internet now, online survey sites like SurveyMonkey exist, and you can literally spread your questionnaire, your research right around the world at very little cost. So cluster sampling, not such an issue as it used to be in the past. In reality, then what usually happens is you get a form of multi-stage sampling going on. So different samples may be taken at different stages of the process. So in this example you can see here, if there was a national survey of schools, you begin by taking a random sample of schools, and then you take a sample of pupils from those sample schools. So it's quite often a case that you end up with different sample techniques happening at different stages of the process. Things to remember about this then is the sampling technique you choose can impact potentially on your outcomes, your results. If the sample selected is not particularly representative, and in some cases it definitely won't be, so snowball sampling, for example, you're going to be asking people who are probably all friends or know each other, and so probably have quite similar opinions and ideas. So this can be a problem in terms of the reliability of your results. Remember, reliability refers to the repeatability of those results and whether or not you will get the same results if you were to ask the same questions of a different group of people. Okay, so if your sample is not representative, then your results will not be reliable. Sampling is potentially time consuming. Things like stratified sampling, for example, you have to organise all of the names into the groups first before you can then sample them, whereas something like simple random sampling can be quite quick and easy, although you do have to get hold of that sampling frame, that list of potential respondents, and that isn't always easy. Say, for example, you wanted to do a survey of Littleover School, the chances are we would not give you permission to have a list of all of the students in the school, so you would not be able to use that sampling frame. So, interesting topic. Don't often get many questions on it on the exam paper, but you do need to be aware of it in case you're asked about how you would sample different groups for a piece of research. Hope that's been helpful, and I will see you on the next video.